Hey folks, welcome back. Today is day 5 of the 30-day VO summer project. Still a mouthful, still doesn't roll off the tongue. I got to come up with a better name for that. But it's day 5. It is Friday, July 25th, 2025. It's 7:54 a.m. It's going to be another hot one today. They're saying that it's going to be even hotter today than yesterday. So because of that, I'm getting into the blanket cave early in the day before the heat really gets cranking. And already it's a little on the warm side. So, my glasses are super dirty. I have nothing to wipe them with, so I'm just going to wipe them using my shirt. So yesterday, I read chapter 1 of The Secret Garden, which is in the public domain, and I rapidly discovered that, like so many bodies of work that are in the public domain, there's some pretty antiquated, outdated, cringe-worthy cultural and racial assumptions and statements embedded into the narrative that, in 2025, in this day and age, makes me kind of uncomfortable to read it out loud. I'm bumping on stuff. I'm going to have to adjust the blanket that is hanging over and covering up the glass drafting table that I'm sitting on because I keep bumping my wristwatch on it. Oh, no, we don't want a timer. Haha. Go away. So I'm struggling to try and read authentically and emotionally, but then I hit those passages about the natives, and my whole body just cringes. But I'm gonna keep reading The Secret Garden. So today I'm gonna read chapter 2. I listened to the reading that I did yesterday. That's super important in developing skills as a voice actor, is not just to read. Yes, read. Like if you're sitting outside, read, right? But listening back to your sessions and analyzing your performance. So I listened back to chapter 1, and my analysis of chapter 1 is that, I sound pretty wooden and stiff. I ask myself, is that a narrative performance that I could listen to comfortably for several hours? And yesterday's performance, I would give it a no. It's just, I need to work on it. So I need to soften it up. I need to make it sound a little bit more intimate. Again, try to engage with the text a little bit more authentically, emotionally. It's just that is something that I struggle with personally, is that emotional connection. And that's just because of my brain and how my brain is, and we're not going to get into that too much. But this morning, it is early in the morning. I've gotten out for a walk. I try to get out for a walk every morning and every evening. I try to bracket my days with walks. It clears my head. It wakes my body up. But my voice at almost not quite 8 o'clock in the morning is definitely not warmed up. So we're going to do a warm-up first thing this morning. And in my winter 30-day project, pretty much every journal entry started with a warm-up. So if you watched that, this will be familiar to you. If you didn't watch that, then welcome to my vocal warm-up session. And I do weird things, and I sound ridiculous, and I look ridiculous. But it's very effective. Hold on. I have to take a drink of water. It's been difficult to stay on top of hydration when it gets this hot. You're just sweating all day, and you don't even realize how much water you're losing throughout the day. So I'm actually probably a little bit dehydrated right now. I can kind of hear it in my vocal folds as I'm listening to myself speaking right now. But, tomorrow is a new day, so I'll just super hydrate all day today and see what I sound like tomorrow. All right, so let's see. So we're going to start the warm-up with some strengthening exercises for the mouth, the tongue, the jaw. Working on breath control by working on some deep diaphragm breathing. All right, so actually we'll start with some slow, deep breaths. Really trying to soften my belly, make space for that diaphragm to contract and draw down and tighten into the abdomen as much as possible, and then control the relaxation of the diaphragm as it's lifting back up and pressing the air back out. All right, so let's loosen up our neck muscles and our shoulder muscles with some neck and shoulder rolls. And I'm going to take off my headphones for a little while because I don't need them on. All right. I lost track of how many that was. Trying to do 10. Left, 10, right. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Definitely some crispiness that I can hear in my neck. All right, shoulder rolls. Five, 10. Other way. 5, 10. One for good measure. All right, so let's massage the jaw muscles and the facial muscles. And this is the part that always looks really ridiculous. Behind the jaw, sort of under the earlobe. Can be a lot of tension right there. So right here. And then in front of the jaw. And as ridiculous as this looks, I am always amazed at how good it feels. And I'm not being gentle. I'm really applying some pressure. It just feels so good. All these little muscles we don't even realize that we have. So silly. Don't knock it till you try it. Using my knuckles. All right. Pulling down. Release the jaw. Get that jaw to relax. Get under the chin. You do have muscles under the chin. Sort of pressing towards the back of the throat. So not right up at the front, but back here. And then grabbing the chin and just tugging on the jaw. Checks how relaxed your jaw muscles are. All right. And then I watched, I'm going to not be able to talk while I'm doing this. I watched a video on a woman who is a singing coach, not a voice acting, spoken word coach, but she was talking about the muscles that are attached to your larynx in your throat that sort of like run up and down in here can get really tight, and when they do, they pull your larynx up. You have a bone that sort of anchors your vocal folds, and those muscles can get really tight. So she was talking about loosening those up. And she said in the video that if you do this and you find a spot that hurts, stay there for a little while. Like super sharp pain, obviously not, but if it's sore, if it's tender, lean in and work on that spot a little bit. And then there is, if you feel on the front of your throat, your trachea, there's a spot. It's like a little nub. Here it is for me. This would be called the Adam's apple. More prominent on some than others. And then right above it is a little divot. And you want to just work on that and massage that divot. And again, this is to relax the muscles that anchor that bone and let it relax and lower. All right. Gum chews. All right. So again, this is to loosen up the jaw. So 10 in one direction, 10 in the other direction. Like you're chewing gum. Really exaggerated. I think that was 10. Fake yawning. I actually feel super awake right now, so this will be very fake yawning. One more. I'm trying to get the whole body into it. All right. So let's start actually warming up, making some sounds. What do you think of my haircut, by the way? It's 2 days old. I went for like almost a year not cutting my hair because I was like, how long can I let my hair get? It got pretty long and I got pretty irritated by it, bothered by it, especially since it is so stinking hot. Oh my God. So I was like, chop it off, and it feels so great. Is it cute? I think it's cute. If it's not, no worries. You know, my dad used to say the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is about 3 weeks. But I think this is a good haircut. Anyway, let's do some soft, low, resonant humming. All right. I like to put my hand on my chest to feel the vibrations. All right, here we go. Ready? Sitting up a little taller. I sit on a kneeling chair instead of a regular chair. So I'm sort of like perched on it right now. Nice deep diaphragm breaths. Soften that belly. Make space for the diaphragm to drop as it contracts. Generally speaking, you want to do that for about a minute. I'm not really paying attention to the time right now. All right, so we're gonna warm up our mouth with some. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. My prescription changed on me, and I knew that it had. But I finally ordered new glasses, but they're not going to be here until tomorrow. They're the exact same frames, so you won't notice a difference, but I will. All right, so basic lip trills while shaking our head no. And again, that's just to work on keeping our neck muscles loose. I'm actually going to take my headphones off for this so that I can be free to like really shake my head as vigorously as I want. Lip trills. Just let your arms hang to the sides. Don't worry about what you look like. Just let it feel good. If you have trouble making those lip trills, you can put your fingers right here, and that will help you. As my embouchure fatigues, I end up having to do that to help myself. All right, so we're going to do a 4 or 5 note scale up and down while doing lip trills, not shaking our head. Again, just like let your arms hang to the side. Keep those shoulders relaxed. Think about your breathing, keeping that belly soft, making space for that diaphragm to drop as you draw in breath. We don't want tight upper chest breathing for this. We want low diaphragm breathing for this. One more up. I can feel my embouchure getting tired. Now we're going to go down and up, back down the scale. Yeah, take your time with this. Don't rush. Be slow, be intentional. No, there's a lot of things to be thinking about, so take your time with it and really make the most of it. Let's see. What is next? I have it written down. Tongue trills, doing them voiced and unvoiced. So tongue trills. This is like rolling your R's. Brrr, brrr. Some people are better at this than others. I've heard that there's a genetic thing that some people just can't. I don't know if that's true or not. I know that like being able to curl your tongue like that is genetic. But I don't know if rolling your R's is genetic, and I don't know if there's a correlation. All right, so we're going to do tongue trills. Voiced and unvoiced. And we don't have to do a scale if we don't want. We're just I think I'm going to do siren trills because that's boring. But still thinking about diaphragm breathing. This also helps with breath control, which clearly I need to work on. Tongue strengthening exercises. I haven't done these in a while, actually. I'm going to put my glasses back on. I find it really helpful to actually watch myself do these. All right. So, here we go. These look ridiculous, but it is, again, it's to strengthen all of these muscles that help with enunciation and articulation. So really stretch, really reach, like you're trying to like wrap your tongue under your chin, which if you can do that, that is really weird. But imagining that. All right, so now we're going to try and touch our noses, which I cannot do. But when we do that, it juts our jaw forward. So that helps with the jaw articulation. All right, so we're going to do left and right. Boy, look at those neck muscles working. That's not attractive, but that's not the point, right? All right, so we're going to go just circle our tongues all around really wide. Really stretch that tongue as we're doing it in a full circle. 5 in one direction, 5 in the other. Oh, man, I don't have a tissue. Okay, something else. Now we are going to wrap our tongue around our teeth, around the front and then the back, and then uppers and lowers, and we're going to reverse directions. Just follow along with me. I find that this really actually tires my tongue out more than anything else that I do. Other direction. Now, bottom teeth. Other direction. At the back of the mouth, you really want to concentrate and focus on trying to get your tongue to wrap behind that back molar in your mouth. That's what really tuckers me out. Okay. Ya exercises. So this exercise strengthens your the muscles that control your larynx, keep your throat open. Supposedly, they will create a fuller, richer tone to your voice and help you with reaching clearer, higher notes and reduce the need to push or strain to hit higher notes. Now, I'm not a singer by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm not worried about hitting high notes. But I am concerned with having like richness and fullness in my voice as in vocal performances. So we're going to do this. So you keep your tongue out the whole time. And while you keep your tongue out, you make ya noises. But the goal is to have as little movement in your jaw. So when you just say ya, it comes from raising and lowering your jaw. Ya. We want to create the ya by pushing our tongue forward in our mouth and pulling it back, forward and back. So as little motion in the jaw as possible. So just watch if you want, or do it with me. All right. And I watch myself, actually, to make sure that my jaw isn't moving much. See, it's all in the tongue. That's perhaps the weirdest looking activity of these. Okay. Again, working on vocal enunciation, we're just going to repeat 4 letters, really like over enunciating it with our mouths. And the letters are Q, E, Q, R. 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 Q, Q, E, Q, R. There we go. All right, so let's do a few tongue twisters. All right, so this one is to work on a mix of digraphs and blends. I did a lot of tongue twisters in my winter project. Again, you'll be familiar with these if you watched that series. Through 3 cheese trees, 3 free fleas flew. While these fleas flew, a freezy breeze blew. Freezy breeze made these 3 trees freeze. Freezy trees made these trees cheese freeze. That's what made these 3 free fleas sneeze. Want to do it one more time? Let's do it one more time. Let's see if we can do it a little faster. Through 3 cheese trees, 3 free fleas flew. While these fleas flew, a freezy breeze blew. Freezy breeze made these 3 trees freeze. Freezy trees made these trees cheese freeze. That's what made these 3 free fleas sneeze. Free fleas sneeze. 3 free fleas sneeze. Woo! That's a tough one. So this next one we have to be careful with, because if you let it get away with you, you'll end up swearing. I slit a sheet I slit. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. I slit a sheet I slit. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. I slit a sheet I slit. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. I slit a sheet I slit. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. I slit a sheet I slit. Upon a slitted sheet I sit. I'm going to stop before I get myself in trouble. To work on your R sounds, clarity of your R sounds. If you must cross a course-cross cow across a crowded cow crossing, cross the cross-course cow across the crowded cow crossing carefully. Did you get that? If you must cross a cross-course cow across a crowded cow crossing, cross the cross-course cow across the crowded cow crossing carefully. One more time. If you must cross a cross-course cow across a crowded cow crossing, cross the cross-course cow across the crowded cow crossing carefully. To work on general articulation. 6 sick hicks, nick 6 slick bricks with picks and sticks. 6 sick hicks, Mick. I need to take some water. Thank you. 6 sick hicks, nick 6 slick bricks with picks and sticks. 6 sick hicks, nick 6 slick bricks with picks and sticks. 6 sick hicks, nick 6 sick hicks, nick 6 slick bricks with picks and sticks. All right. Rory the warrior and Roger the worrier were reared wrongly in a rural brewery. Rory the warrior and Roger the worrier were reared wrongly in a rural brewery. Rory the warrior and Roger the worrier were reared wrongly in a rural brewery. Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. Fred fed Ted bread and Ted fed Fred bread. Right, this one I kind of have memorized because it's one of my favorites. Betty bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter Betty bought was bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter, but a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So Betty bought a better bit of butter. Betty bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter Betty bought was bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter, but a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So Betty bought a better bit of butter. One more time. Betty bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter Betty bought was bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter, but a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So Betty bought a better bit of butter. There's one little portion in that, make my batter better, that my articulation struggles with. Okay, last one. Last warm-up. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thick, say it quick. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thicker, say it quicker. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Don't eat with your mouth full. I don't know what the last line is supposed to do, but it's there. So, yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thick, say it quick. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thicker, say it quicker. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Don't eat with your mouth full. One more time. Let's see how fast we can do it. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thick, say it quick. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Spread it thicker, say it quicker. Yellow butter, purple jelly, red jam, black bread. Don't eat with your mouth full. There we go. And now we are done with the warm-ups. All right. So let's see. I'm going to read now. Do I have anything else to talk about in general? I don't think so. I do a little bit. So, in listening back to last night, what is going on there? Whatever. In listening back to last night, and analyzing the audio, there is a lot of volume variation when I was reading. And I think I need to work on trying to maintain a more stable volume when I read. All right, I'm going to get Reaper going. There we go. Because when you render a file, especially for ACX, they have really specific audio requirements. Your audio can't peak out above -3 dB, but the average loudness has to also be a certain level. So what I find when I'm reading is that my average loudness levels are too low. They don't meet ACX requirements, but my peaks are pretty darn high. So in trying to get the average loudness up, I peak out or I clip. So I don't know if that's just practice or an audio engineering issue, but I might reach out to one of the tech coaches on Skills Hub and book like 20 minutes with them just to talk about Reaper and make sure that I'm doing everything right the way that I'm supposed to be doing it. In the last video, I talked about how I've heard that when you're just speaking regularly, your volume your level should be fluctuating between 12 and 18, I think. But I've turned my gain down a little bit, just to give myself a little bit more of a safety net with the headroom. I'm also working on a microphone that I built myself, and for reasons I don't really understand, it has a DC offset issue, which is an issue that I can't honestly truly explain the technical aspects of it to you. I read up on it. You can read up on it too if you're curious. Just Google DC offset in microphones, and I'm sure an explanation will pop up. But what having DC offset does is it limits your headroom. So that might be an issue. Maybe I just need to switch to a different mic. I do have a different mic, but it has more self-noise than this one does. I'm also just, kind of proud that I built this microphone. I really want to be able to use it because I think that other than that DC offset issue, it sounds pretty good. It's a little crisp. I've been told that it's kind of a bright mic. We'll see. Eventually, I might get over myself and just switch to a different mic. Okay, so this is chapter 2 of The Secret Garden that we're going to read today. And again, I'm working on trying to emotionally connect with it as I'm reading. The Secret Garden, chapter 2. Mistress Mary quite contrary. Mary had liked to look at her mother from a distance, and she had thought her very pretty, but as she knew very little of her, she could scarcely have been expected to love her, or to miss her very much when she was gone. She did not miss her at all, in fact, and she was a self-absorbed child. She did not miss her at all, in fact, and as she was a self-absorbed child, she gave her entire thought to herself, as she had always done. If she had been older, she would have no doubt been very anxious at being left alone in the world, but she was very young, and as she had always been taken care of, she supposed she always would be. What she thought was that she would like to know if she was going to nice people, who would be polite to her and give her her own way, as Aya and the other native servants had done. That native servants, that's the stuff that I get hung up on. I'm just going to try and read through stuff like that. Let me back up. What she thought was that she would like to know if she was going to nice people, who would be polite to her and give her her own way, as Aya and the other native servants had done. She knew that she was not going to stay at the English clergyman's house, where she was taken at first. She did not want to stay. The English clergyman was poor, and he had 5 children, nearly all the same age, and they wore shabby clothes and were always quarreling and snatching toys from each other. Mary hated their untidy bungalow and was so disagreeable to them that after the first day or two nobody would play with her. By the second day they had given her a nickname which made her furious. It was Basil who thought of it first. Basil was a little boy with impudent blue eyes and a turned-up nose, and Mary hated him. She was playing by herself under a tree, just as she had been playing the day the cholera broke out. She was making heaps of earth and paths for a garden, and Basil came and stood near to watch her. Presently he got rather interested and suddenly made a suggestion. "Why don't you put a heap of stones there and pretend it's a rockery?" he said. "They're in the middle," and he leaned over her to point. "Go away!" cried Mary. "I don't want boys. Go away!" For a moment Basil looked angry, and then he began to tease. He was always teasing his sisters. He danced round and round her and made faces and sang and laughed. "Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and marigolds all in a row." He sang it until the other children heard and laughed too, and the crosser Mary got, the more they sang, "Mistress Mary, quite contrary." And after that, as long as she stayed with them, they called her Mistress Mary, quite contrary, when they spoke of her to each other, and often when they spoke to her. "You're going to be sent home," Basil said to her, "at the end of the week, and we're glad of it." "Well, I'm glad of it too," answered Mary. "Where is home?" "She doesn't know where home is," said Basil, with 7-year-old scorn. "It's England, of course. Our grandmamma lives there, and our sister Mabel was sent to her last year. You're not going to your grandmamma. You have none. You're going to your uncle. His name is Mr. Archibald Craven." "I don't know anything about him," snapped Mary. "I know you don't," Basil answered. "You don't know anything. Girls never do. I heard Father and Mother talking about him. He lives in a great big desolate old house in the country, and no one goes near him. He's so cross he won't let them, and they wouldn't come if he would let them. He's a hunchback, and he's horrid." "I don't believe you," Mary said, and she turned her back and stuck her fingers in her ears because she would not listen any more. But she thought it over a great deal afterwards, and when Mrs. Crawford told her that night that she was going to sail away to England in a few days and go to her uncle, Mr. Archibald Craven, who lived at Misselthwaite Manor, she looked so stony and stubbornly uninterested that they did not know what to think about her. They tried to be kind to her, but she only turned her face away when Mrs. Crawford attempted to kiss her, and held herself stiffly when Mr. Crawford patted her shoulder. "She's such a plain child," Mrs. Crawford said pityingly afterward, "and her mother was such a pretty creature. She has a very pretty manner, too, and Mary has the most unattractive ways I ever saw in a child. The children call her Mistress Mary quite contrary, and though it's naughty of them, one can't help understanding it. Perhaps if her mother had carried her pretty face and her pretty manners oftener into the nursery, Mary might have learned some pretty ways too. It is very sad, now the poor beautiful thing is gone, to remember that many people never even knew that she had a child at all. I believe she scarcely ever looked at her. Reading that again. I believe she scarcely ever looked at her, sighed Mrs. Crawford. When her Aya was dead, there was no one to give a thought to the little thing. Think of the servants running away and leaving her all alone in that deserted bungalow. Colonel McGrew said he nearly jumped out of his skin when he opened the door and found her standing by herself in the middle of the room. Mary made the long voyage to England under the care of an officer's wife, who was taking her children to leave them in a boarding school. She was very much absorbed in her own little boy and girl, and was rather glad to hand the child over to the woman Mr. Archibald Craven sent to meet her in London. The woman was his housekeeper at Misselthwaite Manor, and her name was Mrs. Medlock. She was a stout woman, with very red cheeks and sharp black eyes. She wore a very purple dress, a black silk mantle with jet fringe on it, and a black bonnet with purple velvet flowers, which stuck up and trembled when she moved her head. Mary did not like her at all, but as she was very seldom liked by people, there was nothing remarkable in that. What? Mary did not like her at all, but as she was very seldom liked... Oh, sorry, I'm misreading the sentence. Mary did not like her at all, but as she very seldom liked people, there was nothing remarkable in that. Besides which, it was very evident Mrs. Medlock did not think much of her. "My word! She's a plain little piece of goods," she said, "and we'd heard that her mother was a beauty. She hasn't handed much of it down, has she, ma'am?" "Perhaps she will improve as she grows older," the officer's wife said good-naturedly. "If she were not so sallow and had a nicer expression, her features are rather good. Children alter so much." "She'll have to alter a good deal," answered Mrs. Medlock, "and there's nothing likely to improve children at Misselthwaite, if you ask me." They thought Mary was not listening, because she was standing a little apart from them at the window of the private hotel they had gone to. She was watching the passing buses and cabs and people, but she heard quite well, and was made very curious about her uncle and the place he lived in. What sort of a place was it? And what would he be like? What was a hunchback? She had never seen one. Perhaps there were none in India. Since she had been living in other people's houses and had no Aya, she had begun to feel lonely and to think queer thoughts which were new to her. She had begun to wonder why she had never seemed to belong to anyone, even when her father and mother had been alive. Other children seemed to belong to their fathers and mothers, but she had never seemed to really be anyone's little girl. She had had servants, and food and clothes, but no one had taken any notice of her. She did not know that this was because she was a disagreeable child, but then, of course, she did not know she was disagreeable. She often thought that other people were, but she did not know that she was so herself. The word order. I told you about public domain books and how the style that they're written in is a little antiquated. She often thought that other people were, but she did not know that she was so herself. She thought Mrs. Medlock the most disagreeable person she had ever seen, with her common, highly colored face and her common fine bonnet. But the next day they set out on their journey to Yorkshire. When the next day they set out on their journey to Yorkshire, she walked through the station to the railway carriage with her head up and trying to keep as far away from her as she could, because she did not want to seem to belong to her. Because she did not want to seem to belong to her. It would have made her angry to think people imagined she was her little girl. But Mrs. Medlock was not in the least disturbed by her and her thoughts. She was the kind of woman who would stand no nonsense from young ones. At least, that's what she would have said if she had been asked. She had not wanted to go to London just when her sister Maria's daughter was going to be married, but she had a comfortable, well-paid place as housekeeper at Misselthwaite Manor, and the only way in which she could keep it was to do at once what Mr. Archibald Craven told her to do. She never dared even to ask a question. Captain Lennox and his wife died of the cholera. Sorry, it's Mr. Craven speaking. Captain Lennox and his wife died of the cholera, Mr. Craven had said in his short, cold way. Captain Lennox was my wife's brother, and I am their daughter's guardian. The child is to be brought here. You must go to London and bring her yourself. So she packed her small trunk and made the journey. Mary sat in a corner of the railway carriage and looked plain and fretful. She had nothing to read or look at, and she folded her thin little black-gloved hands in her lap. Her black dress made her look yellower than ever, and her limp, light hair straggled from under her black crape hat. A more marred-looking young one I never saw in my life, Mrs. Medlock thought. Marred is a Yorkshire word, and means spoiled and pettish. She had never seen a child who sat so still without doing anything, and at last she got tired of watching her, and began to talk in a brisk, hard voice. I suppose I may as well tell you something about where you're going, she said. Do you know anything about your uncle? No, Mary said. Never heard your father and mother talk about him? No, Mary said, frowning. She frowned because she remembered that her father and mother had never talked to her about anything in particular. Certainly they had never told her things. Muttered Mrs. Medlock, staring at her queer, unresponsive little face. She did not say anything more for a few moments, and then she began again. I suppose you might as well be told something, to prepare you. You are going to a queer place. Mary said nothing at all, and Mrs. Medlock looked rather discomfited by her apparent indifference, but after taking a breath she went on. Not but that it's a grand big place in a gloomy way, and Mr. Craven's proud of it in his way. That's gloomy enough, too. The house is 600 years old, and it's on the edge of the moor, and there's near 100 rooms in it, though most of them's shut up and locked. And there's pictures and fine old furniture and things that's been there for ages, and there's a big park round it, and gardens, and trees with branches trailing to the ground, some of them. She paused and took another breath. But there's nothing else, she ended suddenly. Mary had been listening in spite of herself. It all sounded so unlike India, and anything new rather attracted her. But she did not intend to look as if she were interested. That was one of her unhappy, disagreeable ways. So she sat still. Well, said Mrs. Medlock, what do you think of it? Nothing, she answered. I know nothing about such places. That made Mrs. Medlock laugh a short sort of laugh. She said, but you are like an old woman. Don't you care? It doesn't matter, said Mary, whether I care or not. Well, you're right enough there, said Mrs. Medlock. It doesn't. What you're to be kept at Misselthwaite Manor for, I don't know, unless because it's the easiest way. He's not going to trouble himself about you, that's sure and certain. He never troubles himself about no one. She stopped herself as if she had just remembered something in time. "He's got a crooked back," she said. "That set him wrong. He was a sour young man and got no good of all his money and big place till he was married." Mary's eyes turned toward her in spite of her intention not to seem to care. She had never thought of the hunchbacks being married. And she was a trifle surprised. Mrs. Medlock saw this, and as she was a talkative woman, she continued with more interest. This was one way of passing some of the time, at any rate. "She was a sweet, pretty thing, and he'd have walked the world over to get her a blade of grass she wanted. Nobody thought she'd marry him, but she did, and people said she married him for his money. But she didn't. She didn't." This has got to be a typo. But she didn't. She didn't. I don't know what to say here. I'm just going to cut it out. "But she didn't. She didn't. When she died." Mary gave a little involuntary jump. "Oh, did she die?" she exclaimed, quite without meaning to. She had just remembered a French fairy story she had once read. It had been about a poor hunchback and a beautiful princess, and it had made her suddenly sorry for Mr. Archibald Craven. "Yes, she did. She died." "Yes, she died," Mrs. Medlock answered, "and it made him queerer than ever. He cares about nobody. He won't see people. Most of the time he goes away, and when he is at Misselthwaite he shuts himself up in the west wing and won't let anybody but Pitcher see him. Pitcher's an old fellow, but he took care of him when he was a child, and he knows his ways." It sounded like something in a book, and it did not make Mary feel cheerful. A house with 100 rooms, nearly all shut up. A house with 100 rooms, nearly all shut up with their doors locked. A house on the edge of the moor, whatsoever a moor was, sounded dreary. A man with a crooked back, who shut himself up also. She stared out of the window with her lips pinched together, and it seemed quite natural that the rain should have begun to pour down in gray slanting lines and splash and stream down the window panes. I need to take some water. And it seemed quite natural that the rain should have begun to pour down in gray slanting lines and splash and stream down the window panes. If the pretty wife had been alive, she might have made things cheerful by being something like her own mother, and by running in and out and going to parties as she had done in frocks full of lace. But she was not there any more. "You needn't expect to see him, because 10 to 1 you won't," said Mrs. Medlock. "And you mustn't expect that there will be people to talk to you. You'll have to play about and look after yourself. You'll be told what rooms you can go into and what rooms you're to keep out of. There's gardens enough, but when you're in the house, don't go wandering and go poking about. Mr. Craven won't have it." "I shall not want to go poking about," said sour little Mary, and just as suddenly as she had begun to be rather sorry for Mr. Archibald Craven, she began to cease to be sorry and to think he was unpleasant enough to deserve all that had happened to him. And she turned her face toward the streaming panes of the window of the railway carriage and gazed out at the gray rainstorm. And she turned her face toward the streaming panes of the window of the railway carriage and gazed out at the gray rainstorm, which looked as if it would go on forever and ever. She watched it so long and steadily that the grayness grew heavier and heavier before her eyes, and she fell asleep. She watched it so long and steadily that the grayness grew heavier and heavier before her eyes, and she fell asleep. And that's the end of chapter 3. Cold reading is challenging for sure. And I can really feel that I am not hydrated well right now. All right, so let's see, how long have I been recording for? It was about 20-ish minutes of reading, I guess. This will also help me build up reading stamina, I think, which I will need if I hope to actually narrate any audiobooks. So that is it for day 5 of my summer VO project. Thanks for stopping by. If you are still with me here at the end, wow. As always, if you have any thoughts or feedback or questions, feel free to drop them into the comments. All right? Great. I'll see you next time.